floor is yours, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much to all of you gentlemen for being here and also for your service. It's very much appreciated. Mr. Campbell, has Public Safety Minister Gary Anandasangri ever consulted with you on the firearms buyback?
Yeah, so we met with the Public Safety Minister, we met with Sean Fraser, the Attorney General, and we spoke the same things that we've talked about here today. We've communicated to everybody equally. Yeah.
Mr. Sauve, have you spoken with the Public Safety Minister about the gun buyback?
We've been in conversation and getting updated from the Commissioner of the RCMP just as to how it may impact our members.
But in the development of it, were you consulted for the effect it would have on your members and your members' willingness to participate in it?
We were not, no.
Okay. Mr. Stamatakis, same question to you. Were you consulted in the development of the buyback by Minister Anandasangri?
Well, we provided feedback when that program was first developed, so that was before the current minister. Oh, sorry.
Relevance. I don't think the question is relevant to the study.
Chair, I would say that the firearms policy in this country, when all witnesses have spoken about the expanse of gun crime and the priorities of this government in dealing with it, are highly relevant. So I actually think it's quite short-sighted for the member to suggest that going after legal gun owners is not relevant to a study on crime and bail and repeat offenders when firearms have been mentioned by our witnesses.
Yeah, it's a stretch, but keep it a little tighter, Mr. Lawton. I understand where you're going, but just afford the witnesses the opportunity to answer to it. And
yeah, I will.
Perhaps stick closer to the theme of the study.
So my Liberal colleague actually raises an important point here, which is that law-abiding gun owners have nothing to do with crime. So I'll ask you, Mr. Campbell, because you have spoken about that in the past. Do you believe that law-abiding firearms owners in Toronto are a public safety risk?
No, and we've talked about this before. The gun buyback program is going to have zero impact on the crime we're seeing in the city of Toronto, period. And quite frankly, I don't know if there's any plan in place, but if there was some sort of plan to try and obtain these firearms, I'm not sure who's going to do it or what resources, and I can think of 100 different ways, if you want to help public safety in the city of Toronto, that we could have other things to do.
And Mr. Stamatakis, I'll ask the question to you as well, because we have heard repeatedly when we've been speaking to police officers and police chiefs that they do not have the resources to keep up with existing criminality on the street. Police lack the resources to check on bail conditions. And I'm wondering if you can speak to that first and foremost. How are police forces with scarce resources dealing with the amount of time it takes to just check up on people on bail?
They're not. We don't have the resources, and we don't have the capacity to target repeat violent offenders that are released on bail to the extent that we should be. So you have to prioritize. You prioritize based on how prolific the violent offender is and what resources you have available. And so back to the buyback program, I agree with my colleague. You know, there's a lot of resource challenges, and there are things that we could be using those funds for that would be more effective than a buyback program that, to be blunt about it, police services in Canada don't have the capacity to try and manage.
Mr. Sauve, do RCMP members want anything to do with having to go around and collect firearms from law-abiding gun owners?
I haven't spoken to RCMP members about collecting firearms. You know, we are on record back when C-21 was tabled that, you know, the appropriate use of resources to have an impact on crime in Canada is to target illegal firearms trafficking coming up from the States. And if any government were to take any resources and put them into greater border enforcement, guns and gangs units with municipal or provincial police services, you would see a market impact on gun crime in Canada.
Thank you. Mr. Sauve, you said earlier that the federal government can provide leadership. Do you see that leadership from this federal Liberal government on these bail issues?
Well, we're sitting here, and I think this is a great thing. You know, I've heard that there are numerous pieces of legislation that are coming forward that are going to touch on different aspects of law enforcement, immigration, border security, bail, all of those things. That encourages me. I think that it should encourage Canadians that these difficult discussions that Canadians have been asking for are actually happening.
I'll ask a question to you, Mr. Campbell. There was a situation in St. Thomas, Ontario, where a homeless man, a repeat offender, was released on bail with a curfew. He had a condition that he had to be in his home at 10 p.m. Is that something that's happened in Toronto, an unenforceable bail condition?
And I'll agree with Tom that there is not the capacity to take a look at these people out on bail and actually try to enforce it. I know the province of Ontario is a recommendation here to look at. It's an app. There's a lot of young police officers. It's essentially like MLS, if you're looking for real estate, but for bad guys out on bail. It's something that's in the province of Ontario. Talking about information sharing, that is something that could be implemented Canada-wide that could help us if we had the capacity to actually track these bad guys.
Thank you very much. So the Liberal Bill C-75, which enshrined in the criminal code the so-called principle of restraint, that offenders have to be released at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions. That went into effect a little over 6 years ago. That bill was passed. How soon after that, Mr. Stamatakis, did you start to see the effects of increased bail on less onerous conditions?
Yeah, I don't know if I can. I mean, this was an issue already, and I think the effects arguably were felt immediately, almost immediately, because for all the reasons that we've described, and I don't want to repeat them, but we do, what I would say is we need almost like a bifurcated system where I actually don't have an issue with the principle of restraint or the concept in C-75 when it comes to, a first-time offender with no history. But what we need to do is we need to find a way to treat the violent repeat offender differently.
For sure, but you're saying you can draw a direct line from that provision to these bail problems on the streets that your officers have to deal with.
Well, I think it's a little more complicated than that because we also have an underlying problem in this country with drug addiction, substance abuse. We have a huge problem in this country with a lack of support for people suffering from mental health issues. But in my view, anecdotally, based on feedback from members, experiences that I've had in my own community where I live, there's a correlation.
I'll ask you, Mr. Campbell, on that drug question. When your officers encounter someone who's using drugs in public, you're laying a charge. What are federal prosecutors doing with those charges on simple possession?
Who's laying a charge for simple possession?
So let me ask you, what do your officers do in a case like that, and why?
Most of the time, they're not doing anything. They move on to something else.
Your mic was off. I'll ask the question again and get you to repeat it. So when your officers come across open drug use in public, what are they doing and why?
Yeah, a lot of the times, my mic's on now, a lot of the times they're just seizing it for distraction. They may not go down the road of actually laying a charge. If it was, you'd see it withdrawn. If it's a resource issue with the federal prosecutors, I don't know, but that's generally what happens in the city right now.
And these drug charges, just for those unaware, these are federal prosecutors, the Federal Public Prosecution Service of Canada that's responsible for that.
Yeah, if you want to go again for a ride-along, you can come down into 51 Division, which is down at Regent Park, and you can see open drug use every day right in front of you, if anybody wants to come take a look at it.
So we've been talking about bail, but we're not even at the bail stage here because the federal prosecutors are deciding to not enforce the law effectively, to not apply the law.
I wouldn't want to guess on that. I can definitely get back to you with more information. I'm not sure if any of my friends would have more information on that.
I can say that was the case when I started my career over 20 years ago. The simple possession, Tom says it jokingly, but yes, in the lower mainland of Vancouver, we did not arrest for simple possession in Vancouver, and that's 20 years of experience there.
All of you have spoken to some degree about officers arresting people, rearresting them days, sometimes hours later. When an officer makes an arrest, my understanding is there's a risk. There's a legal risk, there's a physical risk that could go sideways. And I have heard, anecdotally, but I was hoping you could shed some light on it, one of you, from officers, that there's a temptation to not expose yourself to that risk when you know that they're going to be out on bail and it will all be for nothing. So how does that affect morale of officers when they're seeing these people that they know on a first-name basis on the street, regardless of having been arrested for a very serious offense?
Yeah, I can say it impacts morale greatly. Our members in Toronto are doing their part, and they literally are risking their lives. We've seen a few years ago, we had 8 police officers, I think I'm right, Tom, killed in the line of duty in Canada. They're risking their lives to make these arrests. I'm proud of them because they still go out there every day and do their job because they care about their communities, they care about victims, but it's tough. It definitely impacts morale when you do say our gang unit does a complicated investigation, takes a long time, lots of work, lots of resources, only to see those gang members back out of custody in a matter of days.
We have some emerging research in Canada recently, and Quebec's sort of leading the way, where it's more troubling than that. It's not only demoralizing, but we're creating an environment where police officers are disengaging. They're not taking those risks. They're not being proactive and intervening when they could be because of the futility of it. It's creating a lot of challenges in our sector from a wellness, mental health, moral injury perspective.
Mr. Lawton, time.
Thank you.